Hello and welcome to my Halloween special. I hope you all had a great day yesterday. A few of you had tagged me in your Halloween costumes. It's amazing to see some people taking part in Royal High cosplay. It does really mean a lot to me to see you guys making things and tagging me in it. I do really want to inspire you all to try creating things because it's just a really lovely hobby to have, and things like knowing how to sew can be really useful to know. Also, if you aren't subscribed yet, why not? Only 23% of you guys are subscribed, which means there's around 42,000 viewers in the last month who didn't subscribe. But anyway, I'll be making the Goth Lolita sleeves, the magical witch hat, and the 2018 bat candy bag. So let's have a look at the creation of the Lolita sleeves first. I started off by measuring my upper arm. After I had the measurements I needed, I created a rectangle on some newspaper using those measurements. I used my measuring tape to make a circle the same size as my arm and traced that onto the paper. I traced a bigger circle around that and cut out both templates. I checked to see if the templates fit on my arm okay, which they did. I decided to make a second rectangle template, this one just being half a rectangle longer, I believe. I decided to add a bit more length onto the rectangle by cutting some more out and sticking that on with some tape. Now that all the templates were done, I took the small rectangle and cut out two pieces in white fabric. I made sure I had enough fabric to add elastic into on both ends. And then, of course, I cut it out. I took the circle template and folded it up so it would be a lot quicker to cut the circle out. I also folded the fabric up in the same way. Now, if you plan on copying this technique, please make sure your two flat template edges are touching the two folded fabric edges, not the sides with the raw edges. If you place the template on the wrong sides, you'll end up with multiple half or quarter circle fabric pieces and not a full circle. I now have all my white pieces cut out, so I'm moving on to my black fabric, which I fold in half. In the black fabric, I cut out my longer rectangles and the circles too. After that, I then iron all the pieces out. It's time to start sewing, so I grab my white rectangles and start pinning the top and the bottom. I want to make thin pockets for elastic to be threaded through, but I also needed enough fabric outside of the rectangle template for when it came to sewing the outside poofy part to it. I did the same to the other rectangle too. After it was pinned, I marked where the edges were of the template and where the edges of the elastic were too. I then sewn across all of the pencil marks I had made. Now this may seem like a huge skip, but after the white fabric had been sewn, I took the black rectangles and gathered the fabric under the sewing machine so it would be poofy and be the same length as the white rectangles. I did this to both sides of the rectangles as well. Then I went back to the white rectangles and threaded the elastic through using safety pins. I sewed one end of the elastic down, and when it came to sewing the other side, I pulled the elastic so it was tight and crumpled the fabric a little. I did this to all sides and the other rectangle. With the circles, I cut into them so I could easily sew them onto the rectangles. I didn't bother pinning them together, I just put them both under the sewing machine because I needed to pull the rectangle a little so the fabric lay flat and we wouldn't lose the stretch of the elastic. After that, I took my black rectangles and sewed white ribbon across the bottom of them. I sewed them on top of the gathered seam. Then I cut the black circles in preparation of being sewn to the white ribbon I just added. I flipped the ribbon over and sewed the ribbon edge and circle together. And here's it done. The next thing was to add the lace. I folded and pinned the lace to the black circle. And then I sewed that on. Once the lace was all sewed down, I sewed the white and black circles together. I sewed on top of the lace seam as well. I trimmed off all the excess fabric and I sewed the top of the sleeves together. I cut a little slit in the white fabric for when I sew both the sides together. After that, I of course sewed the sides shut. Then I got to flip them inside out. Before I actually sew the sides together, I sewed up the hole using a ladder stitch. And then I used the same stitch to sew up the two sides of the sleeves. The last thing to make was the bow. I added some ribbon and added a loop of ribbon around the middle to create a bow, and then I attached them to the sleeves. Now it's time to make the magical witch hat. Just like with the Lolita sleeves, I made a circle template for the brim of the hat. The measuring tape is the size I wanted the base of the cone to be. I cut the circle out and I decided it was a bit too big, so I folded and taped it in some places. I then drew my cone on another bit of newspaper. I had halved the cone base measurement for this. And here's what I ended up with. So as you can see, that template is half the cone. And just like always, after the templates are done, I cut the fabric out for the cone. I also marked with a pencil where the template was. I ironed it. And then I sewed it together, but I left the bottom of it open. Using the same technique from the Lolita sleeves, I cut out the brim, and I only cut out one circle here. I turned the cone inside out and attached the brim to the base. The hat has a veil, so I took a rectangle of black sheer fabric and hemmed the sides of it. And then I added lace onto the bottom of it. It's basically the same way I did one of the layers on the starfrost skirt. I cut out another circle and left the middle in. I did mark half the inside circle and cut along that though, and this is what the veil will go through. After a lot of messing around, I did manage to pin the veil into that little cut, and then I sewed that together. Now it's lace pinning time. You all know the drill by now. Actually, I'm not sure how many videos of mine show this, but oh well. I pinned lace all around the brim of the hat, and then sewed that in place. After that, I pinned the veil circle to the brim and sewed it together. Then I cut a hole in the bottom so I could turn it inside out. I stuffed the hat with scrap fabric. Yeah, it may not be as light and fluffy as stuffing, but it's definitely so much cheaper, and it also means you're not throwing out fabric, so it's a win-win for me, really. After it was stuffed, I sewed the hole together using the ladder stitch. I drew a star onto some folded fabric and sewed it. I left a little opening though. I cut all the excess fabric off and then I turned it inside out and I stuffed it. Then I attached it to the hat. The last step was adding the ribbon and the bow, so I put some ribbon around the base of the hat, and then to make the bow, I did 2 ribbon loops and I sewed that together and then attached some ribbon around the middle of it. After that, I attached it to the hat and I secured the ribbon around the hat in place whilst doing it. The last thing to make is the bag. I measured out a rectangle and of course cut it out. I then hemmed what was going to be the top of the bag, and then sewed the two short sides together. I measured my tube and then worked out a rectangle size that would fit in the bottom of it. I pinned the rectangle into the bottom of the tube, and sewed it in place. After that, I cut out a bit of cardboard the same size as the rectangle in the bottom, just so the bag could have a little bit of shape. It didn't work too well, but the bag was just made very quickly. The bag was a very last minute thing that my brain said I needed to have for Halloween, so there wasn't much planning for this. I decided to thread wire through the top of the bag just to try and give it some shape, although this wire is extremely bendable, so it doesn't really work, but we're gonna pretend like it works. Next thing I did was the handle. I basically just folded some fabric and then I sewed that into a tube. I cut off the excess fabric and then I turned it inside out. I attached it to either side of the bag. I got some black fabric and drew bat wings onto them. Sewed them together. Then I got some wadding and cut some out with the bat template I had made, and I put this inside the fabric wing I had made, and then I sewed over it. The last thing that I needed to do was sew the wings onto the bag. I did this very close to where the handle was. And here's all the finished items. Unfortunately, I did have to film in my bedroom, so I couldn't get a full body shot of my costume, but here is a photo now. I did have to pin the hat to the wig because it wasn't staying on with the clips I had sewn into it, but I managed to keep it on my head for about an hour before taking it off. But yeah, I did a couple of TikToks. You can find all these TikToks on my Instagram account. If you'd like to see more of the photos, I posted them on my Twitter and Instagram. I did also make a post on the main Royal High Amino. But that will conclude this week's video. Join my Roblox group if you haven't already. But until next week, goodbye.